everybody, it's me, Brittany, and I'm just finally coming on here to give an update. I ended up having my baby boy on December 27th at 2:10 p.m. He weighed 8 pounds and 8 ounces, and here he is. His name is Dylan Matthew. And I'm just coming on here today to introduce you all to him and also tell my birth story. So things definitely did not go as planned. I will say that right from the get-go. We had a planned induction for January the 3rd, which we did not make. He decided it was time to come a little bit earlier. And basically what happened is on Christmas Day, the evening of Christmas Day, I decided to take my blood pressure, which I've been taking my blood pressure every few days, and it had been pretty good. Well, on December the 25th, the evening, I decided to take it, like I usually did, and it was really high. It was like 140/90, and that really scared me. So I relaxed some, I tried to do some deep breathing, and decided I was just going to take it in a few more minutes and see if it came down. Well, it did not end up coming down. It stayed pretty high. It stayed right in the range of 140/90. So I told myself I was going to try to get a good night of sleep, and if it was still high in the morning, I was going to call the on-call nurse and try to get a doctor's appointment or see what they recommended. So I tried to sleep that night. I did not sleep very good at all that night because I was so worried about my blood pressure. And I ended up taking it again around 2 or 3 in the morning since I couldn't sleep. And it had not gone down at all. It was still really high. It was like 140/100. It was even higher at that point. So that was really scary. And I ended up laying on my left side and taking it again. And at that point, it had come down some, but it was still higher than usual. And the next morning, it was still high, and that was the 26th. So at that point, I called the on-call doctor around 7 o'clock in the morning, or the on-call service, and the OBGYN, the doctor's office, ended up calling me back right away, right at the next day, or 26 at 9 a.m., and they said, we need to see you right away. Are you yawning? Are you sleepy tired? Are you sleepy, honey? So I went to the doctor, and at that point, I kind of figured that maybe they would be inducing me, since at that point I was 38 weeks and 2 days, so I knew that I was full term if they did decide to induce me. So I had all my hospital stuff packed just in case. And it turns out the doctor did say that she wanted me to go ahead onto the hospital because my blood pressure was not coming down. So I went to the hospital, and they kind of monitored me, and they did that for a couple hours, and since my blood pressure obviously still wasn't coming down, and they even found some traces of protein in my urine too, so they said that I was definitely going to be staying. I was definitely going to be being induced. So this really came as a shock to us because we were expecting to have him on January the 3rd, and turns out he was going to be coming quite a bit earlier on the 26th. So on the 26th around 2 o'clock, they gave me a Foley bulb, which if you haven't heard of a Foley bulb, it's something they insert into your cervix to kind of help dilate you and get you ready to have a baby. And let me just tell you, that insertion was extremely, extremely painful for me. I did request some pain medication. I requested Nubain prior to the insertion because I had read some horror stories about Foley bulb inductions. And I'm glad that I did because that helped it at least be bearable, but it was extremely painful having that thing put in. And after it was put in, I started getting uncomfortable about a couple hours later, and I felt like I was starting to have contractions, and I was in pain. I had Nubain one more time after that just because I needed something to take the edge off. And they told me that the Foley bulb would probably be falling out the next morning, since I was only like, I think half a centimeter or something when I came in. So I was expecting it to fall out the next morning. Well, it turns out that around 7 o'clock, I felt like I needed to have a bowel movement. So I went in the bathroom, and all of a sudden I felt the most extreme pain I've ever felt in my life. And before I realized what had happened, the Foley bulb had popped out. And I screamed so loud. It was so embarrassing. Like 5 or 6 nurses ended up running in the hospital room because I screamed so loud. And they said that they were surprised that it had fallen out so early. It was a good sign. It meant that I was progressing, and I was already 4 or 5 centimeters. So even though it was extremely painful, I was glad that it fell out. So at that point, they checked my cervix again, said I was, I guess, 5.5 centimeters. And they said that the next morning they would start Pitocin. And the doctor came in, checked me out. She said that we would start Pitocin the next morning, try to get a good night's sleep if I could, because the next day was going to be the day that little Dylan was going to be making his arrival. So I tried to get a good night's sleep, but it was hard because I had to keep getting up to go to the bathroom every few minutes, and it was just restless. So the next morning, the doctor came in and said she was going to break my water, and she suggested that I get the epidural. So I went ahead and went with it because I have a very low pain tolerance, and I just decided at that point that I wanted to go ahead and get an epidural. They recommended it. So I did that. It wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. The needle was not as bad as I thought it would be, so that was good. And she broke my water, which didn't hurt at all. And at that point, they started Pitocin, and my contractions started to pick up. And after I had the epidural, I kind of dozed for a couple hours because it made me kind of tired, which was nice. And then when I woke up, they checked me again and said at that point I was between, I think, 7 and 8 centimeters. And the pain was kind of starting to intensify a little bit at that point. So at that point, I felt like the epidural had worn off, and I said, can someone check the epidural because I feel like it's worn off? And everybody was like, oh no, it's not wearing off, your contractions are just picking up some or whatever. Well, finally someone decided to actually check me, and they said, well, yes, it slipped out of place. So the anesthesiologist said he could put another epidural in because mine apparently had slipped out of place. At that point, I was in excruciating pain because I had pretty much no epidural at that point. And I was about to get a second epidural. The doctor came in and she checked me, and she said that even though my cervix was doing great, I was like 7 or 8 centimeters, but Dylan's head was not coming down. She said that he had not dropped at all, even with my water, even though my water had broken, and he had a big head and he was really high up, and she recommended that I just go ahead and get a C-section because she did not foresee him dropping into the birth canal. And I said that I wanted to labor a little more on my own if possible, so I tried to labor on my own for another hour. Once again, I had no epidural at that point, and the pain was excruciating. They didn't want to give me a second epidural because they said that it would interfere with me getting a spinal if I did need to get a C-section. So after about an hour, the pain was just so excruciating. I told the doctor to come back in and check me again, and she came back in and checked me and said that I still had made no progression. And she said that at that point she highly recommended I go ahead and get a C-section because she said I could go ahead and get another epidural and try to labor on my own for another few hours and see what happened, but she didn't really foresee me being able to deliver him vaginally since he wasn't ready to come. He was only 38 weeks and he was so high up. She just didn't foresee him dropping into the birth canal, so she thought it'd be pretty much a waste of time to keep trying to labor. And if I did continue to labor, even with another epidural, it's possible that something could happen, like his heart rate could drop, or he'd go into stress. So at that point, I decided just to go ahead for the C-section. So they said they would get a team ready and take me back to the surgery center. That was the longest wait of my life. At that point, the pain was just absolutely excruciating because at that point, I had gone about 2 hours with no epidural, no pain relief, not even Nubain. There was a point I said, can I have a couple Tylenol? Can I have something? And they would not give me anything. They said that, we're waiting for you to get the spinal for the C-section, and once you get that, you can't have anything up until you get that. They're getting ready to come for you. And it took them forever to finally come for me. By the time they finally came for me, I was just in so much pain, I felt like I was going to pass out from it. So they took me back to surgery, back to the table, and they put me on the table, and they gave me a bunch of shots in my back to numb me against the spinal, and that was extremely painful too. They gave me one shot, and I thought that was going to be it, and then they gave me another one, and I was just, at that point, I can't even describe to you how painful it was. It was horrible. But it wasn't long after that the anesthetic did kick in, and they put me on the table, they put the little drape up, and a few minutes later, little Dylan was born. He was 8 pounds and 8 ounces. He was, I think he was 20¼ inches long, and he was perfect. They said that he did have a little bit of amniotic fluid in his lungs from the C-section, so they did have to monitor him in the nursery for a couple of hours before they could bring him to me. But when they brought him to me, he was doing great, and we stayed in the hospital. We stayed in the hospital 4 days total, and everything turned out well. You know, it wasn't the birth that I had planned. It wasn't the birth that I had hoped for, but the most important thing was a healthy baby, and we got that. We got our healthy little baby boy, Dylan Matthew. So really could not ask for more than that. I want to thank everybody on here for all your wishes and your prayers and thoughts. Everyone who's thinking about us during this time. Everything turned out great, and we were very blessed. We had this beautiful baby boy, and so far, actually, he just had his he was just turned 1 month on Sunday. So right now he is 1 month and 2 days old. So everything is going great so far. Unfortunately, breastfeeding did not work out for us. He simply did not latch at all, which was kind of disappointing to me because I really wanted to be able to breastfeed. But what I'm doing is I'm pumping, and I'm giving him pumped breast milk along with formula since my supply is low. Right now we're using Happy Baby organic formula. He's a little bit colicky, so if anyone knows of a formula that helps with gas, please leave it in the comments below. But other than that, he's healthy as he can be. He got it back up to his birth weight within 3 weeks, and right now he's about 9½ pounds. We have our 1 month appointment coming up next week. So yeah, everything is going great. And I will probably be making some more videos soon. I might do one about hospital bag, like what I actually used from my hospital bag and what I didn't use. I might do a video on like on baby essentials, what I found to be essential for our first month at home, and what items I didn't really use at all. So comment below with what kind of videos you would like to see. And thank you all for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And please subscribe to continue to follow our journey. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye. Can you say bye-bye, Dylan? Bye-bye, everyone.